What's up? It's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I want to talk about the U.S. men's national team and their last international window. Now, there are a lot of talking points that come from this window. I think the biggest one is, I feel like the balance of power in Concacaf has definitely shifted. I mean, for a while, it seemed like it'd just be USA and Mexico on top of the division. I mean, Costa Rica, they were probably the best overall team in 2014, but they never really turned that into a dominant period, despite how good their players were. But right now, Canada is looking very strong, and on top of that, very young as well. And while I still believe USA is more talented than them, Canada's better than us at this point. I mean, last few times we interacted, Nations League, we split it, drew them at home, they beat us away. I think that they're better than us right now. Despite all the talent we have, they believe in their coach Hardman. They've got the star player in Alphonso Davies, who didn't even play, Jonathan David scoring at a high level, Kyle Larin, who, obviously kudos to him, but man, he came through the MLS, and it's so weird to me how Canada can just develop players that we can't. That's another talking point for another video. But, all of a sudden, I feel like we're starting to realize, well, last year was great, but all those wins we had against Mexico, they were all at home. And now we're playing them in Azteca. And Costa Rica's looking good again. And we're getting flashes of how they're the last team to get to a quarterfinal out of CONCACAF. And Panama beat us, and now we have to play them. And those are our 3 matches. So things aren't looking great. They're looking good. I still think we'll qualify with probably a game to spare. But it's not looking great. And I think with the talent that we have, we're expecting things to look great. And they look great for Canada. I mean, I feel like going into qualifying, this was the window where, I hadn't looked completely at who we're going to be playing, but I feel like this is the window where you looked at the team and went, okay, this is going to be our chance to integrate some of the players who haven't been playing that much, because we should be set by now. We'll give some opportunities to guys who are emerging. We can get some experience. But now we can't do that, and a lot of our most talented players have such limited experience, and it's really starting to become a worry. I think we're going to have to get them into the Nations League. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping we can actually try some players out in that one. But yeah, it's not looking great right now. And the balance of power in CONCACAF has definitely shifted more towards Canada. I think also this window, I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing, but I feel like our tactics have been kind of solidified. We seem to like to have the majority of possession. We attack through our fullbacks in the final third. We like to play a withdrawn striker or a false 9 and get our wingers further tucked in. And while it's good to know what we're doing, I'm not too sure about it. So something when managing international teams is you have to realize that unlike at a club level, you have a limited amount of players you can choose from. That means you have to be adaptable. So my go-to example is Vicente Del Bosque in Spain. If you watched him at Real Madrid, the tactics between the Galacticos and the Spanish Golden Generation were completely different. That Real Madrid team had Morientes up front, who was more of a target man. You had a lot of dangerous wide men like Luis Figo, and it was a very good team, one of the best ever. But then the Spanish Golden Generation, a lot of times they wouldn't play with the wingers at all. Come 2012, they didn't even have a striker. They just tucked Fabregas in as a false 9. Had David Silva and Iniesta act as the furthest men forward, and it was completely different because he understood this midfield is amazing. We have to use it, even though I'm used to doing something. He could have stuck Fernando Llorente and Jesus Navas in the team, but he saw the great talent that he had and he used it. And another example is, I can't find this clip. I was looking for it earlier. If you know what I'm talking about, post in the comments section, but it was something where Johan Cruyff was talking about the Dutch national team in the 2000s. And he was saying something, and this is Johan Cruyff, the biggest idealist one of the biggest idealists in the history of the sport. And he's like, there's a certain way that I'd like this Dutch team to play, but we have Ruud van Nistelrooy, and you have to build around him. So, the tactics have to be flexible. And again, I do like having a system in place, but it seems to me like we're kind of not completely, but somewhat emulating the Liverpool system that Jurgen Klopp has, with the really high pressing, playing the striker as a bit more of a false 9 type position, getting our wingbacks attacking a lot, and that's a good thing, because I do think that pressing really helps us. Jurgen Klopp's one of the best tacticians in the world, and I like having the idea, but I'm looking at Liverpool, and we don't have Salah. We don't have Mane. We don't have Firmino. We don't have Trent or Robertson, or Van Dijk or Allison. And I love our guys. We have got a great team going, but it's just unrealistic to compare Pulisic to Mohamed Salah or Dest to Trent Alexander-Arnold. And because of that, we don't look nearly as good. And we have Jesus Ferreira, who's probably traditionally our 9th best striker or something. He's starting because he fits the system. And we're building our attacks through fullbacks, which can work for Dest, but Jedi Robinson, he's not a high-level attacking fullback. If he was, he'd still be in the Premier League. I know money's a factor, but if he was a top 10 left back in England, he wouldn't be in the Championship. So our team wants to play in a way that doesn't really accommodate for our players' weaknesses, and last window chance creation was a major issue. I think that we need to understand that our wingers are the players that we should have on the ball in the final third. Maybe we have Dest on there, but you want the ball at Tim Weah's feet, on Christian Pulisic's feet. You don't want it on Robinson, and you probably don't want it on Dest either. We have some really good attacking players. Let's get the ball to them. It kind of reminds me of, last year I was covering a lot of Premier League soccer. I kind of got burnt out and the USA thing took off, so I stopped doing that. But when you're watching Manchester United, they had, this was early last year, they tried to attack through Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw, and it just never worked. It was so unproductive, and teams knew at a certain point, Shaw's not going to put in a good ball, Wan-Bissaka's not going to put in a good ball, and it was just hard to watch. And we should just get the ball on our star players' feet, not our fullbacks. Because another thing is going back to the 2014 World Cup. We saw a team in England try to replicate what Liverpool was doing without their star players. They're we've got Sterling here, Gerrard, he can play, Daniel Sturridge, he was on great form. They still had Glenn Johnson, Leighton Baines, he's definitely an upgrade on John Flanagan. The defense is far better. The midfield, it wasn't even that much of a downgrade. And Coutinho was obviously missed, but they're okay, this is a good team, and we'll have Rooney filling for Suarez. That can work. Wayne Rooney's a great player. No, it did not work out. Rooney, not at that stage of his career. He could not fill in that void that Luis Suarez left, and trying to replicate that Liverpool team, they crashed out in the group stage. And I'm looking at us trying to, maybe we are not actively trying to replicate Liverpool, but we're forcing a square peg into a round hole. I don't feel like this team's working out the best. So on the player side of things, I feel like things got a lot clearer with some of our players. We started to understand the levels of our guys a lot more, and some that stand out to me is Miles Robinson. He's not an undroppable player, and he honestly might not be a starter. I feel like he had a very strong Gold Cup, a couple of good performances in World Cup qualifying, but he's not the best on the ball, and a lot of his defense relies on athleticism. And once we start playing better teams with high levels of athleticism, we saw this when Larin got past Robinson for the goal, and he can't be too harsh on him, and I wasn't, because he hadn't played in 2 months. He probably shouldn't have been put on the field in that state, but once we're against teams that can match his athleticism, I feel like his level of play is going to start to go down, and I feel like we saw that a bit this window. Next, this one's disappointing, but I don't feel like Tyler Adams is a star man for this team. I mean, he was somebody who I might have been the most high on. I think I've said a couple of times I thought he could have been the best player on this team, but he's okay, you can't say this for the USA team because he's one of our best technical players, but on a world football stage, he's a bit limited technically. He'll misplace some passes, and he's a lot more of a destroyer than he is a creator, which is understandable, but a little bit disappointing. I think we saw that Jordan Morris shouldn't be in this team moving forward. He didn't have a good performance in all 3 of his opportunities, and I don't know, he's just one of the guys from the older generation we got to move on from, because it is what it is with him. He brings some good things to the table, but I'd much rather have Conrad De La Fuente or Matthew Hoppe, or I'd rather give Nicholas Giacchini another chance. He performed very well in the Gold Cup. So, yeah, I feel like Jordan Morris probably should be out of the team going forward. On the positive end of things, Weston McKennie, he's probably our best player right now. He had another really good window. The effort that he shows is great. He's like always dominated. We know his technical ability, great work rate, and honestly, he's pretty good leadership as well. Like I always thought that he should have been given the captain's armband. I don't understand why it's been held back after like the thing in Nashville where he got exiled from the team, but he seems like a leader on the pitch, so that's definitely something that's a positive. Tim Way, he's definitely solidified himself as a starter. I wasn't too sure about that because Reyna is going to be coming back, but Tim Way, he's undroppable at this point. You probably move Reyna into the midfield to accommodate him. That might mean Musa gets dropped to the bench, but it's a good thing to have these issues selection-wise. I think Luca de la Torre has proved himself as a great option. He should definitely be a guy in this team moving forward. We saw his talent. Kellen Acosta probably solidified himself as the backup number 6. Might not be the best thing. I still believe that against good teams, he's not good enough technically, and it will really hurt us in the build-up. But, yeah, he is probably going to be the backup 6 going into the World Cup. And then Christian Pulisic. I feel like he might be at his best coming off the bench, but at the same time, a lot of people are not playing their best position. That's just how things work in international soccer. Brendan Aronson would rather be at a 10 than be at a winger anyway. So even though he might be at his best coming off the bench and just being able to run at tired teams, like Pulisic is too good to drop in my opinion. And if Aronson's form continues, this becomes a conversation. But Pulisic should definitely be a starter for us. Now, I think the last thing that I really want to talk about is the issue of our striker position, and yes, the biggest issue that people have started bringing up Josie Altidore again. Jesus Christ, I don't know why. I mean, I say this a lot with some players, but after that failure in 2017, we should have, cut, 20 of those, 23 players should have never played for us again. We shouldn't be calling in Altidore. It just is what it is. Not at this stage of his career. So I think the striker, I feel like that these guys are a bit hard done because I feel like chance creation has been such an issue for us that you can't really judge all these guys that accurately. But at the same time, we've seen a lot of these players level and we should be able to judge them. And a lot of times strikers are able to do good things without goal scoring. We've seen that with Ricardo Pepe when he's able to get a couple of assists even if he's not scoring. We even saw that a bit with Jesus Ferreira, but I just don't believe he's a good enough goal scorer in general that he should be playing up top. But with our strikers, I think we need to completely cut Yazi Zardes. I mean, it is what it is with him. Sorry for being toxic or whatever. Listen, I get personal threats are awful. That shouldn't happen. And I've called it, remember when Mark McKenzie was getting completely attacked after the Nations League? I call people out on that. That's stupid, but guys, come on. This dude is an international level, and it's not bad to say that. If anything, we're a lot softer on this team than we need to be. The fact that I'm padding this at all, he's just not a good enough player. And continuing with padding, Jesus Ferreira is a good player, but I don't feel like the false 9 is something that we should do. I don't think we have the goal-scoring talent throughout this team that we can afford to play with a false 9. And as a 9, we saw his finishing in action. He's not someone we can rely on to score goals. And, I like the idea of us playing a 10, and he is definitely in that conversation if we start doing that. And I do like him as a player. When he was playing in the wing, I feel like he was by far best attacking player against Bosnia in that terrible game. But as a striker, he shouldn't even be in this conversation, and we shouldn't be tricked into thinking that he is. Now, Ricardo Pepe he's out of form, but he's been our best striker. And even though the goals aren't coming through, you can definitely see his talent. He makes great runs. His hold-up play is amazing. By far the best hold-up play I think I've ever seen out of an American. And technical ability is top class. He can play those 1-2s that can really help us. That's how we scored against Jamaica. But he is out of form, and as I said before with Jesus Ferreira, we need goal scoring at that striker position because our team can't create goals enough without it. So if Ricardo Pepe hits form, he's definitely our starter. But if he's not in form, come March, he might be on the bench. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Jordan Pefok is someone who is in great form, has been in great form for a long time, and is a really good option. He may be a little bit more direct in his style, doesn't have the hold-up play that other guys have, but finishing's important. And on top of that, his style of play, being that big striker, that's hard to deal with. Like, especially on that top international level, I've heard Peter Crouch talk about this before. Like, players just don't know how to deal with that type of striker. And especially, as teams get more creative and nines become more technical players, that option, especially off the bench, of just that huge striker up top that teams can't deal with, that's an option that's viable. And especially if his goal-scoring form keeps up, he should be a guy in their team moving forward. Daryl DK, he's injured right now, so might be a bit of a moot point. I don't feel like he'll even be available by March. He might be, but I feel like that would be a risk to play him. He's just another guy like Pefok. I feel like he's like Pefok, except with a much higher ceiling. He's a more rounded athlete. Well, I say rounded, but he's even stronger, but he's got the pace, and I feel like his technical ability is very underrated by a lot of players. He has a huge room to grow in his hold-up play, and he's somebody who we can't keep out of the team because he's just, like, so talented, but he does have to hit form after coming back from injury, but DK is somebody I want in this squad, especially come World Cup. Hopefully he's one of those guys I mentioned before who can really show out in the Nations League and impress. I'm really hoping we give a lot of guys chances in that, because it shouldn't even be against like a tough team. Like, we should be fine. Josh Sargent, he's looking like more of a winger for Norwich, but I feel like he should still be brought up. Again, he's somebody who needs a good run of form, but I feel like he's similar to Ricardo Pepe. He's good hold-up play, good technique, good pressing. I don't know if I'd rate him above Ricardo Pepe, even if both were in form. Like, I feel like I'd have Ricardo Pepe over him at this point, but if Josh Sargent hits form, he's back in that conversation, and honestly, he's probably starting again, especially if Pepe just hasn't found his footing yet in the Bundesliga. Sargent's the guy we got to go with moving forward. And lastly, we got Matthew Hoppe, who he needs some playing time at Mallorca, but he's looked promising every time we've seen him play, and we need to integrate him into the squad. He needs playing time, but like with him, his talent showed out, and we started Yazi Zardes and Hayes Ferreira, even though they haven't played for months. Like, we can afford to bring Matthew Hoppe in this team on his talent alone, and we need to integrate him in the team. Now, he does need, like, I'm not going to say he should be a starter or anything until he does get that playing time, but he's somebody we need to get in the squad. He's just so good as a player. I love his attitude, and just a great guy in the team. So yeah, that's everything I really have to talk about from this window. Like, I think we will beat Panama, and we will qualify for the World Cup, but it really shouldn't be this close, like, because if we lose to Mexico, or just drop points, which we probably will, like, it's going to be very tense in that Panama game, and we can't say how things will go, you know? Canada's played great. They look better than us at the moment. Hopefully we can take that healthy Mexico team, and hopefully all players can continue to get better. And that's all I really have to talk about for this one. See ya.